In the furthest reaches of the world, where cartographers' ink bleeds into whiteness and paths are swallowed by moss and silence, there exists a forest that refuses to be named. It is neither light nor dark, neither kind nor cruel. It breathes, it pulses, it waits. And within its tangled heart, beyond the reach of compass or reason, there lives a woman in a house that walks. They call her Baba Yaga. The name is a whisper that shivers along the spine of folklore, curling at the edges of children's lullabies and firelit tales. Yet the truth of her is far older than the stories, older than language, older than memory. She is not the crone they fear, not just the bony hag with iron teeth and a hunger for souls. No, Baba Yaga is the forest's breath, the dusk between days, the wild feminine unbound by law or love. She is ancient. She is fire. She is the deep earth that remembers. The forest she guards is neither malevolent nor merciful. It is sensual in its stillness, lush and swollen with secrets. The air there is thick with loam and the perfume of wet bark. Ferns brush against your skin like fingertips. Trees lean in, the branches sighing lullabies in a language only the body remembers. Fog curls low to the ground, soft as silk, tasting faintly of ash and honey. Step too deeply, and you begin to forget your name. Step further, and you begin to feel yourself. Some say the trees there are alive, that the roots whisper truths the world above tries to forget, that mushrooms bloom where tears fall, and birds sing with voices not their own. The forest does not tolerate liars, nor does Baba Yaga. But she is not cruel, not in the way mortals understand cruelty. She tests, she transforms. She strips away the illusions you wear like armor, until only your rawest self remains, quivering, beautiful, true. To some, she is the wise woman, the crone at the end of the path who offers fire and knowledge and death, all with the same crooked smile. To others, she is terror incarnate, a devourer of children, a seductress of madness. The stories change depending on who tells them and who survives. But beneath them all is the pulse of something older, stranger, a hunger, not just for flesh, but for revelation.
They say her house walks on chicken legs, though few have seen it and returned with their sanity intact. It strides through the forest like a sentinel, its walls covered in moss and bones, its windows glowing with candlelight that flickers in rhythm with the heartbeat of the woods. It spins when unwelcome eyes gaze upon it. It bows only to Baba Yaga's voice, a voice like cracked ice over deep water, or the first moan of wind before a storm. She herself is many things. In some tales, her breasts hang low enough to be thrown over her shoulders. In others, she is tall and strong and wild-eyed, with skin the color of river mud and hair tangled with twigs and forgotten prayers. But always, always, she is more than flesh. Her presence shifts. Some say she smells of myrrh and ash. Others recall the scent of blood, or blooming yarrow, or the salt-slick musk of storm-soaked skin. She is the wild maid woman, the boundary between what is known and what must never be spoken aloud. She is feared, but oh, she is also desired. It is a truth few admit, but many feel in the marrow of their dreams, a yearning for something outside the walls of civilization, beyond the reach of rules, a longing for a touch that burns and heals in the same breath, for a gaze that sees not the mask, but the wound beneath. That is why, though they warned their daughters to stay clear of the deep woods, they speak of her still. Late at night, under blankets and breathless moonlight, they whisper of Baba Yaga, not with horror, but with a trembling ache. She is not maiden. She is not mother. She is something in between and beyond. The witch who lives alone, who answers to no man, no god, no law but her own, who knows the language of bones and bees, who can make the dead speak and the living weep, who can stir a cauldron of storm clouds and summon truths so sharp they slice the tongue that dares name them. But she is not without kindness. She will feed the hungry if they speak honestly. She will offer fire to the lost if they come naked of pretense. She will grant boons to those who face her not with weapons, but with open hands and trembling hearts. She is not gentle, but she is just. She is not warm, but she is wise. And in her presence, masks melt like snow on stone.
Baba Yaga has no need to chase. Those who need her come to her, drawn not by roads but by wounds. The broken-hearted, the banished, the women with too much anger and not enough language, the ones who have been touched too roughly or not at all, the ones who dream of fire but wake to ashes. They find her, or rather, she lets them. She appears not always in flesh, but in omen, a crow perched on a windowsill, a kettle that whistles when there is no flame, a rustle in the leaves that speaks your name with breathless intimacy. And then the dream begins, the one where the forest opens before you, fragrant and pulsing, and you step inside barefoot, your pulse pounding in places you've never felt before. And somewhere in that dream she waits, her eyes like lanterns in the mist, her smile a question, her hands not gentle, but knowing. The forest remembers all who enter. Not all are allowed to leave, but those who do carry her within them. Her scent, her silence, her strange and aching love. This is the beginning of the myth, not a fairy tale, not a warning, a summons. A woman of ash and bone, fire and frost, waiting in a forest older than gods, older than shame. She is neither salvation nor damnation. She is the one
who sees. And for those who dare to meet her gaze and survive it, nothing, nothing is ever the same again.
Her name was Anya, though it no longer fit her like it used to. It felt too round, too soft, too much like the girl she had been before silence took root in her chest. In the village, they called her other names when they thought she couldn't hear. Witch spawn, hollow girl, cursed. Her eyes were too dark, they said. Her voice too quiet. Her mother had died in childbirth, and no man had ever claimed her. She had grown like a weed, untended, tough, the kind of girl the world forgets until it needs her for its own pain. She lived on the edge of things, not just the village, but of life itself. Anya moved through the days like a ghost in her own skin, feeding chickens that never clucked for her, sweeping floors that stayed dusty no matter how hard she scrubbed, sleeping beside a fire that never truly warmed her. She had once tried to laugh like the other girls, to braid her hair and whisper about boys, but her hands never knew softness, and the boys, they only came when it was dark and quiet, when shame could hide their trembling. Anya did not cry anymore, not since the last one left her with blood on her thighs and a mouthful of silence. The world had no place for girls who carried rage instead of prayer. She learned to speak with her eyes instead, learned to vanish behind stillness, learned to carry her sorrow like a secret blade. But at night, when sleep abandoned her, she dreamed of the forest. It began as a pull in her belly, like the tug of the moon on the tide, a need without name. The other women said the forest was cursed, that things moved there that shouldn't, that those who entered never returned the same, if at all. But Anya heard the wind between the trees and felt a tremor in her ribs. The forest did not frighten her. It called to her, soft and strange, like something half remembered from another life. She went first with her eyes, tracing the tree line with longing, then with her feet, stepping just beyond the edge, where light still touched the roots, then deeper, until the air grew thick and sweet, and the silence around her no longer felt empty, but alive. That's where she saw it. The house. It stood on impossibly long legs. Chicken legs, yes, but not comical. Powerful, muscular, feathers like tarnished gold, talons that gripped the earth with a restless hunger. The house swayed slowly, as if breathing. Its walls were made of rough timber and bone, windows blinking like eyes behind curtains of dried herbs and crimson thread. Smoke curled from the crooked chimney, dancing patterns in the air that made Anya's skin shiver.
It was hideous. It was beautiful. It was awake. And within it, someone watched. She didn't see her at first. She felt her. The air shifted, the trees leaned, the forest exhaled, and then Baba Yaga stepped into view, as if peeled from the very fabric of the woods. She was tall,
Or perhaps she only felt that way. Her spine curved like a serpent mid-strike. Her skin was the color of dark earth after rain, lined and cracked but strong. Her hair fell like twisted rope, laced with moss, feathers, and things Anya couldn't name. She wore no shoes. Her feet were caked in soil, her nails long as talons. A robe of shadow clung to her like smoke, revealing just enough skin to suggest age without weakness, hunger without pity. Her eyes were the worst, or the best. They burned, bright and pale like birch bark in moonlight, and they saw everything. Not just Anya's face, but her shame, her silence, the bruises on her thighs, and the anger she'd folded small inside her chest. Anya froze. Every instinct screamed to run, but her body would not obey. There was something in Baba Yaga's presence, something older than fear, a gravity, a heat. The witch did not speak, not yet. She looked, and the weight of that look pressed into Anya like a thumb into wax, reshaping the silence between them. Anya's lips parted. No words came. "You have been watching," Baba Yaga said at last, her voice like smoke over embers, soft, rasped, strangely intimate. "Longer than you know." Anya wanted to speak, to ask who she was, what she was, to demand why her heart now beat in strange rhythms. But all she could do was nod. "Come back tomorrow, empty-handed, empty-mouthed, full of ache." Then she vanished into the mist, and the house turned slowly on its legs, as if dancing just out of reach. Anya stumbled home through roots and fog, but something had changed. Her skin no longer fit the same. Her shadow stretched longer, and in her dreams the house returned, walking, whispering, waiting. Each day she returned, and each day Baba Yaga tested her without words. Some days the house would not let her near. Others it would offer her a single task: gather nettles without gloves, light a fire with rain-soaked wood, speak a truth she had never said aloud. Each task peeled her further open, until the girl who had once cowered at the edge of life began to see herself in the mirror of Baba Yaga's eyes. And slowly, something new began to bloom. It wasn't love, not yet, but it was a pull, a recognition, as if some forgotten part of her, buried in blood and silence, had awakened. She began to crave Baba Yaga's gaze, the way it stripped her bare without shame. She found herself aching when the witch disappeared into the house, longing for the scent of her, smoke and resin, and the faintest trace of something wild and feminine, like crushed petals and old sorrow. She did not understand this longing, only that it made her tremble. One night, as the fog lay low and silver over the forest floor, Anya stood before the house and whispered, "What do you want from me?" The door creaked open, and Baba Yaga stood in its glow, one hand resting on the bone-carved frame. "Not want," she said. "I see, and you want to be seen." Anya's throat tightened. She had never felt so exposed, so vulnerable, so alive.
The house shifted behind Baba Yaga like a beast made of memory. Inside, candles flickered, and the scent of burning herbs and hot wine drifted into the night. It was not comfort, but it was invitation. And in that moment, Anya understood. The forest did not call just anyone. The witch did not open her door to the curious or the bold. She opened it to the broken, the raw, the ones who bled quietly and dreamed loudly. She opened it to those who were ready to become something else. Anya stepped forward, barefoot on damp moss, her breath trembling in her chest. And Baba Yaga smiled, not kindly, but knowingly. As the house shivered and the door closed behind them, the forest exhaled once more. Inside the house, time unraveled. It was not like entering a room. It was like stepping into a womb of breath and shadow, a space alive and pulsing with old memory. The walls murmured in voices just beyond hearing. Dried herbs swung from the rafters in bunches. Wormwood, yarrow, belladonna. Bones lined the shelves, not as trophies, but as symbols of endings, beginnings, thresholds. There was no dust, no rot, only the scent of smoke and earth, iron and honey, and something older still, something feminine and animal and sacred. Baba Yaga offered no words of welcome, only a glance that unstitched Anya's breath, and a nod toward the hearth. "Feed the fire," she said. Anya obeyed, though her hands trembled. The wood beside the hearth was damp, the logs slick with moss. They shouldn't catch, not in that cold room. But when she placed them on the coals, the flames licked them hungrily, as if recognizing the offering. And so began the first of many tasks. Each day, Baba Yaga would set her a challenge, not with cruelty, but with precision. The tasks were not meant to break her, they were meant to strip her. Clean the cauldron until you see your reflection. Fetch water from the river and do not spill a drop, though wolves follow your scent. Boil this root and drink it. Then tell me what you dream. Each command was simple, but each carved her deeper. The water sloshed with every heartbeat of fear. The cauldron showed not her face, but her memories, raw, unfiltered, alive. In the bitter tea she drank, her dreams became visions. One night she saw herself dancing naked in the clearing, her body not as it was, but as it could be, tall, radiant, wrapped in shadow and flame. Baba Yaga watched from the trees, her eyes alight with hunger and knowing. Anya woke with wet thighs and a name on her lips. She didn't know what she was becoming, only that each trial lit a fire behind her ribs that no longer burned with shame, but with hunger. She was no longer afraid of the dark. She was learning to taste it.
Still, not all of her longings were so easily understood. She began to watch Baba Yaga when she thought the witch did not see. She studied the lines on her face like maps, the curve of her collarbone, the way her robe slipped slightly from one shoulder when she stirred the cauldron. Baba Yaga moved with the grace of something that had never forgotten its body, and Anya's own body began to ache with questions she had never been allowed to ask. Why did her chest tighten when the witch's fingers brushed her arm? Why did her breath catch when Baba Yaga looked at her too long, too deep? Why did her dreams pulse with images of hands and teeth and laughter that left bruises in the shape of stars? One night, Anya approached the hearth after completing her task, separating the bones of birds from the feathers and arranging them in the shape of constellations. She knelt, her knees pressed into the warm dirt floor, and looked up. "Why do you test me?" she asked, her voice raw. "What do you want from me?" Baba Yaga sat in her crooked chair, legs crossed, her robes loose around her body like fog around stone. She sipped something from a carved horn and said nothing for a long moment. Then, "You came to me full of lies." Anya flinched. "I never." "Not with your mouth," Baba Yaga interrupted, her voice low, edged with something dangerous. "But with your body, your silence, your fear. You came hiding, not seeking. Now the hiding peels away, and you wish to know why?" Anya's heart pounded. She felt naked, though her body was clothed. "I want to understand." Baba Yaga leaned forward. "Do you?" Their eyes locked. The witch's gaze was not soft. It was sharp as obsidian, yet there was heat behind it, heat that burned without consuming. "Then take this," Baba Yaga said, reaching into the shadows beside her chair. She pulled out a small jar, sealed with wax. Inside, something dark, pulsing faintly like a captive heart. Anya took it with trembling hands. The wax was warm to the touch. "What is it?" "Your desire." Anya's lips parted. "What do I do with it?" "Bury it beneath the moon," Baba Yaga said. "Naked, alone. If it grows, return to me." She did as she was told. That night, under a sky smeared with stars, she walked into the clearing beyond the house and shed her clothes. The wind caressed her bare skin like a lover. She dug with her hands, nails clawing at the cold soil, and pressed the jar into the earth. When she was done, she sat there, shivering, her thighs streaked with dirt and sweat, and she waited. Nothing happened, not at first. but deep beneath the ground something stirred. She returned the next night, and the next. By the third, something had broken through the soil. A vine, black and glistening, coiled like smoke. It pulsed with heat. It smelled like musk and blood and memory. She touched it and gasped. Visions filled her. A mouth at her neck, fingers between her thighs, a voice in her ear whispering, "You are not too much. You are not too wild. You are not wrong." She ran back to the house barefoot, her breath ragged, her chest full of fire. Baba Yaga waited at the threshold. "It grew," Anya said, eyes shining. "What does it mean?" Baba Yaga studied her, then stepped aside. "Then you are ready."
That night, there was no task, no words, only the witch leading her into the room behind the fire, a room thick with incense, fur rugs, and moonlight, a room that smelled of wine and myrrh and something warm and feral. Anya did not ask what came next. She already knew. And yet, even in her knowing, she hesitated. Her hand trembled as she reached for Baba Yaga's robe. The witch caught her wrist. "Fear?" she asked. "Yes," Anya whispered. Baba Yaga's grip softened. "Good," she said. "Only fools transform without it." She let go, and Anya stepped forward. That was the true conflict. Not the tasks, not the visions, but the choice to surrender, not to another, but to herself, to her own hunger, her own grief, her own fire. In Baba Yaga's presence, Anya saw what she could become. Not a girl scorned and silenced, but a woman forged from shadow and flame, a creature of instinct and intellect, of desire and discipline. Not safe, not pretty, but real. That night, in a tangle of limbs and laughter and tears, she stopped asking what Baba Yaga wanted and began to ask what she wanted of herself. The answer burned behind her lips like a secret spell. The air inside the witch's chamber was thick with something alive, warm and weighted like breath on skin. Shadows draped the walls like velvet. Candles flickered in the corners, casting golden waves across Baba Yaga's bare shoulders. She sat cross-legged on a fur-lined floor, her robe open, her breasts soft and unashamed, her gaze quiet and all-consuming. Anya stood at the threshold, her body taut with tension. She was no longer the girl who hid behind silence, but she wasn't yet the woman the forest whispered of either. Her heart beat too fast, her thighs trembled, not with fear now, but with anticipation so potent it made her dizzy. The skin at the base of her spine tingled, as if something long buried stirred beneath the surface, reaching for air. She stepped forward. The floor beneath her feet was warm, thick rugs woven with strange sigils, animal hides, and long-forgotten prayers. The scent of the room curled into her lungs, pine resin, sweat, old ash, and something soft and sweet, like crushed violets and burned honey. She knelt before the witch, her breath catching as their eyes met. "Take off your clothes," Baba Yaga said, not a command, but a truth, a necessity. Anya obeyed. She slipped free of the rough linen dress that clung to her like history, letting it fall to the floor like a shedding skin. Her body was marked, scratches from the forest, bruises like ink blots across her thighs, a constellation of freckles along her chest that pulsed with each breath. Her hair fell wild over her shoulders, her nipples tightened in the cool air, and her hands clenched in her lap, unsure what to do now that she was stripped of everything. Baba Yaga's gaze didn't devour her, it saw her, not as flesh, not as prize, but as power, potential, pulse. The witch reached out, brushing a finger across Anya's jaw. Her touch was electric, but not just in body, it lit something behind Anya's ribs, something she didn't have a name for. "You ache," Baba Yaga said. "Yes." "For me?" Anya's breath hitched. "I think so." Baba Yaga smiled, slow and secretive. "No, not for me. For the part of yourself I carry." Anya blinked, confused. "You're not here to belong to me," the witch said, circling around her. Her fingers brushed Anya's shoulder, her spine, the swell of her hip. "You are here to remember what was stolen, what was tamed, what was buried." Anya turned, her chest open, exposed. "What is that?" Baba Yaga leaned close, her lips nearly grazing Anya's ear. "Your wildness." The words slid into her like heat. Then the room shifted, not literally, but perceptually. The walls pulsed, the candles flared, Baba Yaga's presence expanded, no longer merely a woman, but a force, ancient, elemental. Her skin shimmered like bark wet from rain, her eyes gleamed like stars over frozen rivers, her hair billowed in invisible winds, and her voice deepened, not in pitch, but in gravity. "I am not woman, not in the way you've been taught. I am not soft, I am not safe. I am hunger and hearth, death and birth. I am the cauldron that devours and creates. I am the truth beneath your tongue." Anya's knees gave way, and she collapsed into the witch's arms. Baba Yaga caught her, cradling her like fire cradles a flame. And Anya began to sob, not delicate ladylike weeping, but a flood, a violent guttural release. Years of silence tore from her throat, grief she had caged, shame she had swallowed, lust she had feared. It poured from her like storm water, and Baba Yaga held her through it, rocking her as a mother might rock a feral child. "I wanted to die," Anya gasped, choking on her own voice. "I didn't know who I was. I let them touch me just to feel something. I thought I was broken." "You were never broken," Baba Yaga murmured, her fingers threading through Anya's hair. Their bodies pressed close, skin to skin, heartbeat to heartbeat. Baba Yaga kissed her not hungrily, not demandingly, but like a rite,
like lighting a candle. Her lips were dry and warm. Anya melted into her, their mouths meeting in slow, deliberate motion. She tasted of smoke and honey and something deeper, like time itself. Hands roamed, not to possess, but to awaken. Baba Yaga's palms moved along Anya's back, her ribs, the curve of her belly. Her fingers stopped at every scar and bruise, as if reading a map. Anya's breath caught when the witch's mouth brushed her collarbone, then her breast, then lower still. But it was not lust for its own sake. It was initiation.
Each touch said, "You are allowed to feel." Each kiss whispered, "You are still alive." And when Anya gasped and trembled, when her legs opened and her voice cracked into raw, feral sound, Baba Yaga whispered into her mouth, "You are not mine. You are yours." The climax was not the moment her body reached peak sensation. It was the moment she stopped running. The moment she looked into the witch's eyes and saw not a captor, but a mirror. The moment she whispered, "I'm ready." And Baba Yaga smiled, wicked and wise. "Then come." She led her to the center of the room, where a great black cauldron bubbled with something not quite liquid, not quite light. Around it were markings, old, older than language, symbols of birth, decay, wildness, blood. Baba Yaga stepped in first, letting the thick, dark fluid coat her legs, her hips, her chest. It clung to her like night. Anya hesitated. The steam rose around her. Her reflection twisted on the surface, her face, her scars, her pain. "I'm afraid." "As you should be." "If I enter, I won't come out the same." Baba Yaga reached out a hand. "You will not come out at all." Anya understood. This was not metaphor. This was the death of who she had been, the obedient girl, the silent vessel, the forgotten daughter. To step into the cauldron was to surrender to transformation. She took the witch's hand and stepped in. The fluid was warm, thick as blood, and as she submerged, she felt it enter her, through her skin, her mouth, her womb. Her thoughts unraveled. Her breath became wind. Her heart cracked open like a pomegranate, spilling not seeds, but stars. The last thing she saw before the liquid closed over her head was Baba Yaga's face, smiling, ancient, full of love that did not coddle but liberated. And then there was nothing. And then there was everything.
The first breath she took was not her own. It belonged to the forest. It rushed into her lungs thick and wet and alive, filled with earth and flame and the scent of pine needles crushed beneath bare feet. It carried bird song and wolf howls and the low hum of the river. It carried ash
and pollen, and the sound of her name, not as it was spoken by others, but as it was meant to be uttered, low, reverent, full of awe. Anya gasped. She rose from the cauldron like dawn rises through fog, slow, radiant, trembling with new light. The dark fluid clung to her skin in rivulets, slipping down the curves of her breasts, her thighs, her stomach, as if reluctant to let her go. It pooled at her feet, steaming and whispering, before melting back into the basin, as though it had done its work and needed rest. She stood naked and dripping in the witch's chamber, but she did not shiver. The cold no longer touched her. Baba Yaga watched from the shadows, a figure of stillness and storm. Her eyes gleamed like coals under bark. Her lips curved, not in approval, not in pride, but in recognition. "You came back," she said. "I didn't leave," Anya answered. Her voice was different now, deeper, slower, not in pitch, but in weight. Each word fell from her mouth like something sacred, heavy with knowing. It wasn't that she spoke more. It was that she no longer spoke to be heard. She spoke to declare. The witch stepped forward, the floor sighing under her feet. "What do you see when you look at me now?" she asked. Anya met her gaze without flinching. "I see myself." Baba Yaga exhaled, something like a laugh woven with wind. "Then you are ready to leave." Anya's stomach twisted. The word scraped like bark against bone. "Leave?" The witch nodded. "The forest doesn't keep what it has already awakened. It gives you back, changed. But you're still here, because I was never outside it." The room fell silent. Anya felt a wave of emotion rise. Grief, longing, fear. But she did not drown in it. She stood in it. Let it wash over her. Let it strip her bare again. She had known all along that this moment would come. The path she had chosen was not one of possession, but of return. "I don't want to go back," she said softly. "You won't," Baba Yaga replied. "Not truly." The world beyond the forest still existed. Stone houses, cruel mouths, long winters and longer silences. But she would never return to it as the girl who once knelt at the village well, her eyes cast downward, her soul stitched shut. That girl had died in the cauldron. In her place stood a woman forged in wildness. Baba Yaga led her outside. The forest greeted her like an old lover, branches arching, leaves murmuring, the wind coiling around her ankles like a cat. Her bare feet sank into the moss with pleasure. She could feel every pulse of root and stone, every heartbeat of tree and star. She breathed, and the forest breathed with her. The clearing that once shimmered with mystery now felt like home. The bones of animals gleamed like ivory altars, secret and unafraid. The house with its long legs crouched behind her, watching, waiting. She turned to Baba Yaga. "What happens now?" "You walk," the witch said. "Where?" Baba Yaga stepped forward, fingers brushing a stray curl from Anya's cheek. "Wherever you please." Anya searched her face, so strange and familiar, sharp
and soft. "Will I ever see you again?" The witch's mouth twitched. "Only if you forget yourself." Anya opened her lips to speak, but no words came. Baba Yaga bent forward and pressed a kiss to her brow, not as a lover this time, but as something deeper, a seal, a parting, a wound and a blessing. Then the witch turned and vanished into the trees, not like mist, like myth.
Anya stood alone in the clearing, though it no longer felt lonely. Her body still hummed with the memory of touch and trial and transformation. She raised her hands before her, palms open. They were the same hands that had once trembled while collecting firewood, the same hands that pushed unwanted fingers away in the dark, but now they shimmered with a strange strength. With these hands she had stirred flames, torn roots from the earth, bled willingly, held truth. With these hands she had been both cradled and claimed. She closed them into fists, not in anger, but in power. And then she walked back through the forest, not as the frightened girl who had once crept between trees, but as a force unto herself. The branches no longer reached to bar her path. The fog no longer disoriented her. The creatures did not hide. They watched her with gold eyes and bowed heads. She passed the river. Its waters glistened with moonlight. She remembered washing herself there, her thighs stained with shame. Now she dipped her fingers and touched them to her tongue. Sweet, cool, honest. She moved like someone who belonged, not to a place, but to herself. And when she emerged from the forest days later, though the sun told a different story, no one recognized her. The villagers saw only a stranger with wild hair and fierce eyes, her skin kissed by the woods, her silence no longer empty but full. She did not answer their questions. She did not explain. She merely smiled, as if holding a secret they could never touch. Some whispered she had been cursed. Some claimed she had killed the witch and stolen her power. Others said nothing at all, unsettled by the way their daughters began to follow her with their eyes, by how the wind seemed to echo her name. She built her own house on the edge of the woods, not with nails, but with vines and stone and breath. She spoke to animals, to stars, to the dreams of other women. They came to her in secret, with bruises under their sleeves and questions in their throats. She never gave answers. She gave mirrors and fire and silence that healed. She did not try to explain Baba Yaga. Some nights, when the moon hung low and red, she would feel a presence in the trees, watching. A rustle, a breath, a flicker of something ancient.
She never turned to look. She knew better to chase the wild once it had walked beside her. But in her dreams she returned, naked, unafraid, her body pressed to warm fur rugs, her lips on skin that tasted of ash and longing. In her dreams she remembered the cauldron, the kiss, the voice that whispered, "You are not mine, you are yours." She woke from those dreams not weeping, but burning, not mourning, but alive. She never went back to being small. She never let anyone take her voice again. She walked between worlds, neither witch nor woman, but something in between, a wild flame, a healed wound, a living myth. And sometimes, in the hush before dawn, she would whisper her name into the steam of her tea. Not Anya, but something older, something only the trees would understand. There are stories that end, and there are stories that slip into you, quiet as fog, soft as breath, until they are no longer a tale, but a truth you carry in your bones. This was never just Anya's story. It was never just about a girl and a witch, a forest and a fire. It was the murmur of something older, something deeper, threading itself through the marrow of every woman who has ever heard her own name echoed in silence and not recognized the sound. The forest does not explain itself. It teaches, through hunger, through shadow, through touch. It taught Anya that to be lost is sometimes the first true act of remembering, that to stray from the path is not always sin, but instinct, an unspoken calling to return to something primal, sacred, and untamed. She had come into the woods bleeding shame and emerged dripping with truth. It was not a clean truth. It was the kind that stained, the kind that pulsed, the kind that growled softly in your throat when someone tried to make you smaller. The forest whispered, "You do not need to be soft to be beautiful." It showed her bark and fang and thistle. It showed her skin that did not beg for permission. And Baba Yaga? She was not the villain the village warned of. She was not a caution. She was a mirror. Her house turned its back to those who knocked with fear, but it opened its crooked door to those who burned with need, those who came trembling, aching, undone. She was not evil. She was clarity without comfort, love without leash, power without apology. Some called her monstrous. But what is a monster if not a woman who refuses to be tamed? In the forest, the monsters wear crowns of bone and dresses made of smoke. They do not speak softly. They do not serve.
they do not ask for less.
Baba Yaga did not save Anya. She did not cradle her or fix her or tell her she was enough. She devoured her, and in the devouring gave her back to herself. This is how the wild works. It does not soothe, it strips, it sears, and then in the ashes it asks, "Now, who are you really?" Anya answered with her body, with her silence, with the fire she no longer apologized for carrying in her eyes. And in doing so, she became more than healed. She became true. That is the secret no one tells you. Not all wounds are meant to vanish. Some are meant to open. Some are meant to breathe. Because in the ache, in the howl, in the red hunger of longing, there is a map, a pulse, a return. Baba Yaga lives on, not in the forest, not entirely, but in every woman who no longer bows when called too much, in every woman who walks away from the village barefoot and burning, in every woman who sees her reflection in the dark and smiles. She lives in those who love with claws as much as with lips, in those who dance not for show, but to stir the dirt beneath their feet, in those who have tasted themselves and found the flavor wild and worthy. She lives in you. Every time you do not explain your no, every time you take up space without shrinking, every time you bleed and do not hide it, she is there. In the mirror behind your eyes, in the way you tilt your head when someone tells you who to be, in the rhythm of your hips, when you move like you remember you were made from fire, not fear.
This myth was never meant to be tidy. It was never meant to resolve into soft lessons and polite morals. It was meant to awaken, to crack something open, to stir the smoke in your ribs until you ask yourself, what have I silenced? What have I starved? Because somewhere inside you is a house with chicken legs, waiting. Somewhere inside you is a forest that still knows your name. And when the time comes, when the ache becomes too loud, when the skin you wear feels too tight, when the world around you no longer mirrors the fire within, you will hear her. She will not shout. She does not need to. She will whisper, "Come." And maybe you will. Maybe you'll leave the neat paths and measured steps. Maybe you'll forget what you were told a good girl must be. Maybe you'll walk into the thorns and the smoke, into the hunger and the howl. And maybe, just maybe,
you'll find her waiting, not with open arms, but with open eyes. She will not welcome you. She will not ask you why you came. She will look at you and see the wild waking. And if you're quiet, if you breathe just right, if you listen not with your ears, but with your blood, you will hear her say what she once said to Anya.
You are not mine. You are yours. And then she will vanish, and you will be alone, but never lonely. Because from that moment on, you will carry her. In your step, in your scent, in the stories you leave behind like claw marks on silk. The forest will not call you back. It won't need to. Because once you've met Baba Yaga, once you've tasted your own name spoken in her voice, you will never be anything less than wild again. You will be a whisper, a shadow, a flame. You will be the story other girls tell each other in hushed voices by candlelight. The one where the witch was not evil. The one where the girl did not marry a prince. The one where the fire was not put out, but passed on. And when they ask if it's true, if Baba Yaga really exists, smile, tilt your head, say nothing, and let the smoke do the rest.